You are now recording.
We're now recording. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. This is the CROA Board of Directors meeting for May 25th. We're glad to have all of you with us tonight. First thing we're going to do is to decide if the meeting was properly noticed.
It was properly noticed.
And do we have a quorum?
You do.
Just for the record, I'll note that Bill Grindle is not with us tonight. The other members of the board are all here in person. All right. At this time, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Over there. Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think it would also be appropriate to just take a moment in silence to remember the tragedy in Texas yesterday. So I'd ask that we just take a moment. Thank you very much. At this time, we have the call to order, and the next item on the agenda is owner comments. I want to just remind everyone, both online and here in the room, that the way that we're going to handle owner comments, if you wish to speak on anything that's in the action items, so that would be on your agenda, items 1 through 13, I believe. This will be your opportunity to speak. We have copies of the agenda here on the table. If you don't have one, for those of you that are online, you should be able to see the agenda. We will allow you up to 3 minutes to speak. The board will be listening to your comments. We're not generally going to engage. We expect we'll have a fair number of comments, but we're listening because we want to hear what you have to say to us. I also want to point out, there's been some questions about residents wanting to send emails or letters to the board to have read. Prior boards at sometimes did allow that. This board has not done that. And so if you have something to say to the board, obviously an email or a letter is appropriate. And if you wish to read your letter to the community, then you can do so online. We'll call for you online as well, or you can be here in person. So we are not reading letters from the community members, and that's been the policy of this particular board since we reformed in March. Board members, am I missing anything else in terms of protocol?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe you want to tell them what our email address is in case they do want to email the board.
Sure. Lauren?
CROAboard@townhall.celebration.fl.us.
Okay.
And that way you don't have to hunt up everybody's individual email address.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Then the second part of owner comments, when we get to discussion items, which you'll see at the second half of the agenda, if you have something to discuss that's a discussion item, then we'll ask you to speak after the board's had their chance to make their comments and ask questions. So you have that opportunity. I'll also say, because it's come up, you can't reserve time, and it's 1 3-minute period per household. I don't know what other rules I've come up with. I hope not.
Can't yield either. You can't yield your time either.
You can't yield your time. Basically, if you try to play procedural games, that's not cool. We're trying to get to hear from you, and we want to do that in the best way possible. All right. So with that, I'm going to go to the list I have of people who signed in here in the room. Then we'll go to the view online. You can raise your hands if you want to speak on an action item. The first speaker we've got is Vaughn Roberts. You come up to the podium and give us your name and address. And David will be keeping time here.
Vaughn Roberts, 1116 Rush Street. My comment is on a general topic of decorum. And first of all, I want to address the CROA board members. First of all, I'd like to thank each board member for not resigning. I sat in those very same chairs as board member and have on many occasions bore the brunt of rude and accusatory comments via email, social media, and in person. We as a board welcomed and solicited input from the community on various issues, and while passions do come out, the tactics of some, unfortunately, were highly distasteful, derogatory, untrue, and completely inappropriate in a civilized dialogue. The decisions made by the board are frequently difficult, trying to balance the wants and needs of special interest groups with those of the community as a whole. What is best for the community as a whole should always prevail. If a decision makes you unpopular and subsequently subjected to the unmitigated wrath of individuals or special interest groups, rest assured that the decision was made in the best interests of the community as a whole. And I'd like to speak just briefly to the resident owners, including to myself as well. We must show deserved respect to our community volunteers. Our passion is welcome in our governing process, but do not forget that the CROA board and committee members are our neighbors and volunteers, all trying to make Celebration a better place to live. There are ways to accomplish goals and ways to kill them in their tracks. Many residents do nothing more than complain and seem to thrive on discord. Others resort to ugly rhetoric directed toward board and committee members if their wants are not met. If you really want to help, offer constructive suggestions and compromise when that is the best solution. Engage in meaningful dialogue. We all should be acting like responsible adults. To act otherwise shows a lack of the ability to interact in a civil manner when communicating with others.
Thank you very much. Next, I've got Robert Harris.
Hi, I'm a retired investment banker, and
Could you give us your address, please?
oh, I'm sorry, 807 Lake Evelyn Drive.
Evelyn,
Evelyn, I
that's a
know.
joke between him and I.
Go ahead, say it. Your time starts now.
I just moved here a year ago from Chatham, Massachusetts, and we had a movie theater in the same situation that we have this thing downtown. Ours was called the Chatham Orpheum Theater. And I think I could put together a banker that would bring us the money. You make a long-term lease on the property, and all you have to do is pay interest. In the end, you pay back the principal that you borrowed. What we have is volunteers that did everything. Everybody took the tickets, they sold popcorn, everything. Everybody in town was involved. It's a small town of 7,000 people. And it's exactly the same situation I think you're going through here. I don't think there's any reason you couldn't do this. I can find a banker that would loan us the money, basically, and all you do is pay the interest for that period of time. In the end, you pay the principal back. 40, 50 years. It's a deal. That's simple.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask you to, you see that lady in the black and white back there?
Yeah.
That's Dory Moyer, and after the meeting, you should get in touch with her. She's heading the Celebration Hall Advisory Group. Okay? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comment. Next on the list is Debbie Jackson.
Debbie Jackson, 413 Sycamore Street. In reference to item number 7 on tonight's consent agenda, it states a motion to approve croquet courts on Lot D. I am confused as to why this would be a motion at all instead of a discussion item. 2 weeks ago at the May 11th CROA meeting, we were shown a slideshow of the field behind Heritage Hall, mapping out how 40% toward the whole field, 40% of it towards the back of the existing field would be developed for croquet courts. What happened from 2 weeks ago to tonight that you are taking a motion to approve Lot D for lawn sports? I want to know. I think the community wants to know. I'm not opposed to croquet. Our town events have grown to the point that we have now outgrown the Great Lawn at Lakeside for large events. Example, in 1 year, attendance for Aloha Night went from 719 residents in attendance to over 1,100 residents in attendance. That's an increase of almost 400 more residents attending this event. What happens then when just half of our existing residents of today, not even Island Village, want to attend an event? We have seen increases to the events in town over the years, which leaves the only solution for large events for our residents to be up at the civic corridor. We need parking all over town, but we need parking up there. So I would ask that before you move forward, you include parking in your plans, not only for future events and tournaments, but for all the other existing and proposed amenities, including croquet, pickleball, etc., for the civic corridor. Go fast and fix stuff? That's a great and ambitious thought, but sometimes you have to just slow down to actually see the long-term results. And remember, the saying, just like my mama tells me, you can please some of the people some of the time, but you will never, ever please all the people all the time. So get it right the first time. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
I don't know. I just tuned in.
Chris?
This was, I think, the first.
You're good? Okay, thank you. And the last person I have on the list here in the room is Debbie DeLosa. Oh, we got more? Okay, it's Debbie DeLosa? Okay. Yeah, I'll look at the list, see what else we got.
Debbie DeLosa, 415 Arbor Court. Again, I would like to thank everyone for being a member of the board. I really appreciate it. This time I came with some comments written down. The CROA Board of Directors appointed me to the Lawn Sports Task Force on July 16, 2021. Per our charter that was approved by CROA, the task force delivered a recommendation to leverage a field at Heritage Hall for lawn sports and presented it to CROA. At a subsequent board meeting, CROA agreed with our recommendation to use the field at Heritage Hall after getting support from both CROA Recreation Department and the management company. In October 2021, CROA approved funding for an architect, Albert Riddle, to develop plans for both a single and dual croquet courts at Heritage Hall. So money has been spent by the board on plans for Heritage Hall. In February 2022, we reviewed lawn sports plans at Heritage Hall with cost estimates from Albert. These plans were then reviewed by CROA. In today's agenda, the Lawn Sports Task Force was completely blindsided by today's agenda. Number 7, motion to approve croquet courts at Lot D. We had no idea at all. Just 2 weeks ago, May 11th, CROA meeting, lawn sports was discussed under item 3D, lawn sports. So I thought I'd read you a quote from that meeting from the board of directors. Quote, Mr. Kensel began by saying the scope was narrowed down to 2 croquet lawns in Heritage Hall. Emphasis on Heritage Hall. The general objective is to create a community-centered lawn sports venue that fills an unmet recreational need for Celebration residents who do not or are unable to participate in high-impact sports activities due to personal choice, a lack of skills, or have physical or age-related limitations. Key elements must be unifying by promoting better, stronger community relationships between various sections of the community while developing upon 3 major Celebration cornerstones: health, place, and community. I could not agree with that statement more. Thank you, Mr. Kensel. 2 weeks ago, May 11th, Heritage Hall was mentioned a few times. So I have some very, very urgent questions for the board, and I'm really hopeful that they'll be answered tonight. What happened in the 2 weeks between May 11th and today, May 25th? My second question, why? A big emphasis on why did this change happen? And the third one is how? How in the world did this change happen without any input or knowledge from the Lawn Sports Task Force? It really baffles me. There's been good communication before.
We're at 3 minutes.
So I would just ask for that agenda item to be removed and moved to discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Johnny, we see you on the screen, and we're going to ask that you turn off your camera. Johnny Newsom. Just turn off your camera. You can still hear and see us. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Debbie. Next, I have Linda Ahalo. Agello, I'm sorry. I apologize. Come on.
First, I want to thank
Wait. Yep. Hey, would you tell us your address, please?
Linda Jello and 1221 Celebration Avenue, Unit 103. First, I want to thank everybody for all the work they've put into it. Just hearing how much of meetings and planning is going to the Lawn Sports Committee. I mean, I'm late to the game here, and it's just, it's amazing how much time you guys as volunteers put into everything. This may have been discussed before, I'm late to the game, but I live right by Heritage Hall. I'm in one of the condos over there. And as everybody has discussed before, with parking and with space, it's at a premium. And my daughter, a lot of you know, Megan's in a wheelchair, and she has CP, and she's not going to be able to play the sport. That being said, she loves watching everything. So I think it's great and it's important. One of the things that I'm concerned about, how many kids I'm seeing on their phones. They're not doing anything any day. But when they have a big open field, now that things opened up, the masks are coming off, and I'm still nervous with the mask, but I'm seeing the kids kind of like going over, they have a ball under their arm and they're using the fields in back of Heritage Hall. And every morning when I walk my dog, or he's walking me, I walk past and I see somebody that's playing croquet in the field, setting up his own thing and he's doing it. And then later on that same day, I'll see kids from the school playing that same field. Then I might see somebody else, with their leash and trying to train the dog with treats. That field is being used all day long. So it's great to maybe take better care of it and level it a little bit. I don't know how many of you are aware, how many of you live right by there, but the deer, even in the morning, I mean, they are coming out in full force and they're grazing, going in and out through the wooded area behind. If we are now to put up some kind of fencing and cut it off just specifically for one sport, and it's 47% of the field, if I'm not mistaken, you now have like this box over here in the middle, which is now making it less usable for everybody around. Anybody who goes around on the weekends will see birthday parties going on right by the pool and over there. They'll see kids behind that playing frisbee, kids with their grandparents with kites. It just seems to me, maybe, I know we have a need for so many sports out here for everybody to participate. But before we go and vote on something that's going to take a lot of maintenance over time, because you don't want to start it and not keep it up the right way so people can safely play and enjoy a game, maybe we should take a step back and see how many other people won't be able to use it. How many of the kids who are just now going to be like, well, I can't do this, I have nothing to do. And they don't have that much space. But I am seeing more junior high kids playing and doing things and playing tag football and things like that I didn't see months ago. And we don't want them on their phones all day. We want them up and moving around. And maybe they will pick up one of these sports. I don't know. But if we box it off, we put a fence behind it, and then we say for the next 20 years, we're going to commit all this money to maintain it. And then we also have to make sure we have either cameras or something else, because I also live right by there, and when I'm walking that dog is walking me, and it might be midnight. I am seeing sometimes you see kids going out. So thank you for your time. Just take it for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And the last name I have to speak here in the room is Kathy Carlson. No, you're not interested. Okay, fine. Online. Wow, that's a online. Do we have anyone that wants to speak to the agenda items? Lauren?
There are no hands up at the moment.
Okay, at this time, thank you all for your comments. They are heard, and we will be addressing Lot D later and trying to answer the questions that you've got there. With that, the next item is to adopt the agenda. I'm sorry, Brian?
Amber Strasburger on the chat room says she wants to speak.
Oh, okay.
It's actually in the wrong chat room. That's why they didn't see it.
Can we get her?
It's in the previous meeting.
I'm trying to tell her that she's on the wrong meeting.
Yeah.
But she knows, she hears us.
Well, I'm glad to let her speak. I just need to have the, can we get her?
I mean, I can see her here because I got her right here.
Is that?
She's not in this meeting.
She's in the wrong meeting.
Yeah, I'm not either.
So you are too.
Her? No,
No.
We're going to ask if you've got your camera on. I don't know who that is.
Barbara.
Barbara, can you turn off your camera? You can still see us, but the whole room doesn't need to see you. There we go. Thanks. All right. Do we have a way to get Amber? If not, we'll go forward, and when we get her online, we'll let her speak. Is that okay? Is the board all right with that? Tom, do we have a way to get her?
They said she's not in the meeting.
Right now.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward, and when we get to that spot where she's online, we'll try and bring her back in. All right?
She'll be the link too.
Yes.
Sorry.
Joys of technology. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or changes, modifications to the agenda? Lauren, do you have anything?
I do not have any.
Members, board? All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes. The first is the CROA board meeting minutes of May 11th, 2022. The board members have reviewed this previously. Is there a motion to adopt those minutes or to approve them?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I said I'll second. Oh,
Again, I can't see who's online. Is that Amber?
That's Amber.
Okay, let me go ahead and finish this vote and then we'll bring her in. All those in favor of approving the minutes from May 11th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amber, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start your timing here at 3 minutes and go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, I really appreciate the time to speak this evening. My husband and I, we're still fairly new homeowners. We've been attending regularly since August of 2021. Some meetings have been outstanding. Some have been a little bit challenging. But this evening, rather than focusing on, say, facilities or other issues, we did hear some concerning information yesterday evening at the CCDD meeting. And I believe, Mr. Kenzel, you were there, as well as a couple of others that are currently online. And although a budget has not been finalized for proposal to the community or the board, there is discussion that taxes are potentially going to be increased by 50% up to 88%, I believe is what was discussed and what I heard, or excuse me, what I read. So keeping in mind, I'm a condo owner. So if you want to take my $2,500 a year and double it, that's fine. But for some of you, just to get my point across, who may live along the golf course, and there are some of you there who pay upward toward $20,000 a year in taxes, I hope it's, okay for you to double your taxes. My concern with the doubling of the taxes is, based on discussion I heard yesterday, it appears that the community is really being, for the lack of better words, double tapped for services. So in the discussion last night, it was identified that the sheriff's office is looking to increase the amount that the community is already paying of about $100,000 a year for additional services to the community. And that's going to increase to about $170,000 a year. While that's not going to break the bank, I believe the CROA 2, maybe 3 meetings ago voted to pay an additional $100,000 a year for security for parts of the community. So here we are potentially going to increase our taxes with some diminishing services. We wouldn't be paying for extra services if they weren't diminished services. And of course, we're also talking about renewing a contract with a local business or in conjunction with the school. I'm not sure how all that's going to work out, not my business, but we're paying for services that should be provided by the local government. My husband and I, we believe in being good stewards of the community, but being good stewards doesn't mean to keep increasing the amount we're paying to keep things going. Being good stewards of the community is also holding people accountable for the things that they're responsible for. So when you're talking about our taxes, when you're talking about HOA services, whether it's through our current or previous, these are customer service organizations. And as much as we'd like to be complimentary to the services they're providing, please understand we're paying for services.
Yeah, Amber, that's 3 minutes. We appreciate your time and your comments. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Okay. All right. I'm going to return us back to the agenda where we were. The next item is approval of the Communication Advisory Group meetings minutes from 5/5 and 5/18/22. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We're going to hear from the advisory group chairs later in the meeting tonight. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then the last minutes approval is for Celebration Hall's advisory group meeting of 5/5/2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ryan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Cindy, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is finances. Ariel, you're here and up front. Go ahead, take it away.
The financial statements were provided in the agenda package.
Yeah, it's gotta be, yeah, you gotta be.
I want to point out that the CROA cash is strong as of April 30th, 2022. Operating cash, we have around $1.8 million. Replacement funds of $2.5 million. Remember, these funds are restricted to fixing existing amenities. We expect these funds to decline over this year as several projects are underway, but the balance will remain healthy for the year. Capital improvement funds are $2.4 million. These are used for new projects or amenity expansions. I also want to note that we have a surplus of $37,000 on a revenue and expenditures basis for CROA.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Comments? Mr. Treasurer, you got anything to say?
Nope. I reviewed this. Comments, I'm good.
Great. Thank you very much. Next up is President's Update. So, Lauren, could you fire that up? I promise to be brief. Maybe? Okay. Debbie correctly said we should go fast and fix stuff, but we should be careful. I'm going to try and show you what we're going to do in that regard tonight. I hope. Come on.
I think you need to have Janine use the clicker. She does it really well.
There we go. We're going to talk about maintenance, repairs, and landscape. Not happening. Okay, maybe it is. All right, good. We'll go back. In the last 6 weeks, the board has approved expenditures for 69 action items. Maintenance and landscape amounted to over $700,000. We approved 2 new playgrounds worth almost $400,000. That's a total of $1.1 million. So that's what we've done in the last 6 weeks. Now we're continuing to take action. Tonight, you will hear us talk about work that we're doing. I want to show you some examples of some of the work that's being done around town. I hope that as you drive around town, as you visit and look at your communities, you're beginning to see people out doing the work and actually making a difference. This is a before and after picture of Memorial Gardens. I know that David had talked about this previously, starting to clean it up and improve that particular area. That's some more of Memorial Gardens. So you can see there's some work being done there. These are just examples there, by no means an exhaustive list. I promise not to go through all 69. The basketball court, which has been a long-standing problem, to be sure, and it took a long time to find a vendor and to get the work done. And here's a sense of where we are. We're in progress. It's finally getting done. And thank goodness we're actually making that progress today. So yay. This is an example at Oak Pond, just of some of the work that's being done. There is more work obviously being done throughout the community. I hope that as you see workers working, you'll thank them. Unfortunately, we've had some residents who've decided that their response to this should be to go out and spit on workers, literally, to yell at them, to abuse them, to tell them that they are doing a horrible job. Yeah, and that should shock all of us. That is not the level of neighborliness or civility that we should ever have in this community. And I would only say that when you do that, you are way out of bounds. And no member of our staff should ever be physically spit upon because they're out there doing this work. And if you see a neighbor doing that, I hope you'll call them out on it. I hope you'll just say, that's just not appropriate here. And I'm really sorry that I have to say that.
Call the police, that's an assault.
Excuse me?
Call the police.
Well, I know the law.
It's assault.
Yeah. So my point is that our staff is working incredibly hard, and we are going to get things wrong, but we are trying to keep things working properly, and we are trying to make improvements in this community. And I hope that that is what our overall view is. And I hope that the people that behave differently are outliers and don't represent the majority, and I don't believe they do. Now, having said that, tonight the board has on the consent agenda 14 action items. Landscaping represents 175,000 roughly. Repairs represent another 98,000, so that's a total of 272,000. We're starting to slow down, not as much as some people would like, but we have a lot of work to do. We're 3 years behind. We have 3 years of deferred maintenance to be done. And so we are moving fast, to be sure. Now, where does the funding come from? You just heard Ariel give you those numbers. For those of you that can't see it, in maintenance and repair, replacement reserves are 2.5 million. Landscaping comes out of operating expenses. There's $1.6 million. Capital funds pay for new amenities. We're not talking about that tonight, but that's 2.47 million. We have over $8.7 million in assets in this community. We're not overspending. We're spending what needs to be spent because for 3 years we didn't spend anything. And so now we're catching up. The process is literally to go from awareness through management review to look to our community and our service areas for the board to review, which we have done. The package comes out to the board a few days before it goes to the public. We review all of these items and then for approval. The consent agenda are those items that we've already looked at. Items number 3 on tonight are not consent agenda, and we'll be discussing those. So we're going to keep working. We're going to go fast. We're going to fix stuff because we know that that's the most important thing that we can do in this community, and we appreciate your support as we do that. Okay. Thank you. Next are the action items, and the first thing we've got is we've broken the consent agenda into 2 pieces. The first piece, just so you could see it, was landscape items, and as I indicated, that represented, I think, about 117,000. I may be wrong about that number because I don't have it written down here in front of me. But in any event, we've got the landscape items.
150, 160.
Okay. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through I. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Celia makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Brian?
I want to make one comment. And I had asked this question with Lauren and the board this week, just where we go for multiple quotes wherever we can. In this environment today, it is very hard to get people to quote. So sometimes you'll see something and you'll say, there's not 3 or 4 quotes. No, there's not 3 or 4 quotes. When we get one quote, we'll actually have other vendors that we know very well confirm that it is a reasonable amount. So we're still doing that kind of due diligence and everything. I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry. Okay. Any other comment? David?
Yeah, just 2 questions for Lauren or other staff on the landscape. All of these landscape items, A through I, are the vendor is identified as either exquisite or new leaf. Recently, we broke apart with their agreement the Yellowstone landscape contract. So the first question is, this is above and beyond, that's a question, above and beyond what we've already approved. These are new projects in addition to what was approved before.
Yeah, so the contracts that you approved before were for standard maintenance, lawn care, weeding, all of that, replacing plants on a certain rotation throughout the year. These are to get the parks back up to where they should be, which is above and beyond your standard maintenance contract.
Okay. And so then the other question is, each of these has wording such as the following about the vendor. They will continue to maintain it to community standards. So they get it up to speed. They continue to maintain it over what period of time? I mean, how does continue to maintain it over a week, a month, a year, 5 years? Well, what does continue to maintain mean?
So once the parks are back up to the standards after these additional projects, it will then be transferred over to Exquisite or New Leaf. Some of them are revamping the park, and then it's going, like Exquisite is revamping the dog park, but New Leaf is the one that's actually going to maintain it throughout the life of their contract. So whoever's going to maintain it will maintain it up to community standards after this project is complete.
So then the maintaining, is that part of that earlier contract?
Correct.
Okay. That's very helpful clarification. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next part of the consent agenda is what we're calling just consent agenda. And it's items A through E. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda 2A through E? Brian makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Jim makes the second. Any discussion?
I have a question on E, motion to approve the repairs to the tennis court.
Celia, can you put your mic down so we can hear?
On motion E for the tennis courts, that's a hot topic in the community. And we saw what happened with basketball. How long is this gonna take to do these repairs? Ballpark, have they said anything?
I would say 6 to 8 weeks is a generous time frame. This Phoenix Works is the group that we've been working with on a lot of our, maintenance items around the community lately, and they've been quick on getting projects done. So I would say I don't want to promise, but I would say it's less likely that we would run into the same issue that we did with the basketball court.
Just so the community knows that the tennis court,
Is it gonna be done in phases, or
Phases.
is everything gonna be closed at once for them to complete it?
I believe it'll be done in phases, from my understanding.
So like two courts,
So like
Two
courts
courts, three
courts 1 and 2 will be done, and then courts 3, 4, and 5 will be done. And in that time frame, the contract that we have with the Advantage Tennis will be restricted even more so than they are now to ensure that there's open access for residents.
David?
I also have a question on that same item 2E. On slide, and you don't need to pull these up, but on pages 63 and 73. So we're talking about resurfacing the course. Slide 63 or page 63 of the PDF file has something that's not part of the ground. It's like a railing with padding. Is that included? And then slide 73 has some more damage to whatever the ground is, like it's all eroded, all the cement is gone. Is that also part of that repair? So those are two repairs that are not just resurfacing.
The ground repair is part of it. The pads are different.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just getting confirmation from that.
Okay. So it's really the playing surface and the surrounding up to the fence.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, now we're moving to the regular action items. The next is a motion to approve repairs of 2 NEVs by Orlando Dodge Chrysler in the amount of $14,453.27 to be paid from CROA replacement reserve funds. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion. Lauren, you want to tell us why you want to do this or need to do this?
So finding new NEVs are far and few between. We've gone out in a 50-mile radius and then a 100-mile radius, and there are no new NEVs to be found at the moment. A new flatbed NEV, which is one of the ones at the shop, starts at about $17,000. The flatbed is a 2008 right now, but we can't get them, and there's no promise to get them in any reasonable time frame. The other one that's in the shop is a 2016. It's a 2-seater that we use for standard moving around our maintenance team, and they share it with the standards team and Parks and Rec.
So how much is it supposed to extend the life on these? Work warranted at all?
I'm not sure on the work being warranted, but it should extend them at least a couple more years.
David?
So as a clarification, either the last meeting or the meeting before, we approved the purchase of 2 new NEVs.
Yes.
So this is basically, we couldn't get them. Is that?
No, we got 2 new
That's
NEVs.
what I thought we had seen them.
These are existing
No, I
NEVs
know.
that just need repairs so we can keep them in service.
So it's a lot cheaper to repair
Yes.
and get an extended life than to buy new.
Correct.
Okay, but we still do have, so then we had to have a fleet of 4?
You have a fleet of 6.
6?
If these are
If you-
repaired, you'll have a fleet of 6.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, they're now out of service.
Yes. They're sitting at the shop right
And
now.
to be clear, we have 3 inspectors, we have all the maintenance people and stuff like that. We use them on a daily
Yeah,
basis. We were down to where people were having to use their personal automobiles
Yeah,
and stuff
okay.
like that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next is a motion to approve the charter supplement for Island Village 1B. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Lauren, can you tell us about this?
This is, Mattamy reached out to Tom Slayton, as they've platted the second phase of phase 1. They're ready to pass them over to start paying dues. He reviewed the document and it meets with his standards and he recommends approval.
David?
So this is standard just for the regular homes. We have 2 other potential supplements that are still not acted on. One is about service area and the other is about the amenities to be built.
Correct.
So this is just regular homes and standard procedures. They identified the specific lots in this.
To be clear, there's a 1A and a 1B, which is part 1, but there's also a part 2 and a part 3, both of which they have purchased from Disney and have started building on. So there's still a couple more phases that haven't even started from that perspective. We had denied accepting
First unit of service.
The service area back in December,
Did we ever
November.
get any response to that?
We are working with Mattamy to bring them up to our standards before accepting.
For the community, we've learned a whole lot with service areas in the last few years, as many of you are aware. And we actually hired an engineer to do a site review from the outside before we would accept them, and we turned them down.
So at this point, what's happening is that the developer, Mattamy, is actually maintaining the properties, doing the landscaping and maintenance and so on. It's not been turned over to CROA at this time. We remain open to hearing from them, but ultimately they need to comply with the agreement, which required that they repair and replace and bring any property up to standard before we accepted it into our inventory.
So to be clear with what you just said, that's about the service areas, which is townhomes.
Right.
This supplement is about single-family homes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, motion to approve the garden club tree planting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Right, seconds. Lauren, can you tell us about this?
So the Garden Club has approached CROA and the CDD because they would like to annually plant a tree in memory of somebody significant in celebration. They will work with CROA operations and CDD as well as ARC and Covenants to find appropriate places to plant these trees. They will pay for the tree, pay for installation. They just need CROA/CDD approval because we will end up having to maintain the tree once it's planted.
Questions or comments from the board?
I just, and maybe you don't know, Lauren, I'm just curious. So how will they determine? I mean, this is a decision the club will make as to whom this tree is dedicated to for?
Yes.
And then they'll get with you to see where you need the tree planted and then
They will suggest a location, and if it's appropriate, if it's on CDD property or CROA property, then they'll work with the appropriate entity.
Are they thinking about putting like a little something there that says this tree has been planted?
Probably.
Very cool.
I think it's a great idea on them initiating that.
So for clarity, they're purchasing the tree. They're going to get the tree planted. We take care of normal trees on our property and CD did. So this is just like taking care of a normal tree.
I see that there's a hand up in the audience. We're not taking public comment at this point. When we get to the discussion items, if you've got something there, we'll take that. So we see the hand up, but we're moving forward. Is there any other comment from the board on this item? All right, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Lauren, could you put up the other slide deck?
do that.
The next item, before we get to the actual motion to approve the KPMF Lot D design concept, I want to just talk about and frame up where we are in the lawn sports Lot D Heritage Hall discussion. You heard a number of public comments tonight. We appreciate those comments in all respects to what this question is about. I want to just frame up where the board is, I think, and what we're going to be doing tonight to help you get a sense of this. I hope. Come on. Really? There we go. Okay. There are 5 questions that I think we want to ask about amenities in Celebration today, and they're pretty high-level questions at some level. One is, does the community have an interest in new amenities being constructed in open park spaces in residential areas? I think we have to say this out loud because we seem to have reached a point where any construction in an open space or a green space now presents a significant amount of pushback from the residents in that neighborhood. And that may be right, it may be wrong, but I think we have to actually acknowledge that that's a reality. That it doesn't appear at this point that there's any location which will not be controversial. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong or we shouldn't do it. It just means every location that we look at has some drawbacks. And I think we have to ask ourselves, from the standpoint of planning in our community, have we now reached the point after 25 years where we're just at that stage where we're not going to build anymore on open space? I don't have the answer to that, but I think it's worth a conversation and the board will continue to ask that. A second question that we're asking tonight is whether Heritage Hall is a viable option for croquet lawns. A number of you have pointed out that we've been talking about that. It appeared that we were moving in that direction as recently as a couple of weeks ago. We will talk you through what has happened in those last couple of weeks, but the essential question that the board has been asking is, does this particular option, does it make sense? Is it viable? Will it work? And I think that that's a legitimate question for a board to ask about any location. Does it make sense? Does it work? The third question that we're asking in conjunction with that is, would Lot D, as in Delta, we're just going to call it Delta because it's hard sometimes to figure these out, is the Delta lot a better solution for the croquet lawns? Now, for those of you that aren't aware, Delta lot is the one next to the concession stand. It is where we plan to put pickleball. It's got space for overflow parking. There was even a section of that we were using for storage of our landscaping vendors' trucks and so on. So we have to ask, is that a better solution? And I think that's a legitimate question to ask. The fourth question, I didn't set this up with Debbie, but the question of what does it mean to get it right? What does that mean in this situation? Some of you believe that getting it right means doing what I want you to do. I get that. Some of you think getting it right means do whatever the people who yell the loudest say. It's neither of those. It's literally trying to get it right. And I think we can agree to disagree about what right might be. But the board has the obligation to try to get it right. And that's what we're doing. And I hope that there's at least some level of respect that that's our goal. We are not trying to be defensive. We are not trying to be right. We are trying to get it right. And then finally, again, I think Debbie Jackson laid this out. How do we balance patience with velocity? In other words, what's the right combination of being patient so that we make the right decisions, but then having the velocity to move forward once we've made that decision? Some of you have been in this community and we have argued over things for decades. I think there comes a point when we have to say, that's the decision, we're moving forward. And I think that's what's going to happen tonight. Now, having raised those 5 questions, I will say that the board has been trying to work under this theory, that when your values are clear to you, making decisions becomes easier. We are trying to make value-based decisions. To be clear, we are not making decisions based on who yells at us the most, or who yells the loudest, or who's got the most posts on social media. We are trying to do what we think is right. When we are looking at lawn sports, here are the questions that we're asking. First, we want to look at parking. We want to look at traffic. We want to look at, access. Can you get in? Can you get out? What's there? We want to look at compatible uses. Are there other uses that would be with that same use that people would enjoy? And we also want to look at the lawn size. How big is it? How much space does it take? What would it take up? Then we want to know, is the project big enough to get contractor interest and bids? You'll hear Brian talk about that more in a moment. We'll also look at the construction cost. It's a viable question to ask. What does it cost to do a project like this? And then what's it cost to maintain it? So for those that think we're making these decisions arbitrarily, I assure you we're not. We're literally looking at all of these factors. Here's the timeline for lawn sports. We are now at a position, as you will hear in a moment, where we have the first set of drafts from KPM Franklin. They're our engineering company. This is what we call the 30% drafts. We can make changes to the design right now without a cost that's substantial at all. I mean, it's a fairly nominal to nothing cost. And so this is the time to make those decisions. However, the next step is an engineering complete drawing. That's called the 60% level. If you make changes at the 60% level, it's expensive. It's going to cost serious money to make the change, which is why we have to make a decision now. The next step, I hope, is construction bids going out. That's the 90% set of drawings, and we hope to have that done in August. And then we want those bids back in September of 2022. Then construction would hopefully begin somewhere in the fourth quarter of 2022, and then project completion in 2023. Now, that is the design timeline for Delta Lot, whatever is on Delta Lot, whether it includes croquet, pickleball, anything else. So that's the time frame that we're looking at. So I want to be clear that the reason we're talking about making a decision tonight is because we're at the 30% level. This is our last clear chance to make a change without it costing significant amounts of money. So, yeah, there's the obligatory picture of the CROA board. We are trying to work for all of Celebration. Some of you will like our decision tonight. Some of you will not like it. I get that. We are trying to do our best, and I hope that you'll be understanding of that. All right, thank you very much. Now, let's go to the actual motion, which is to approve, number 6, to approve the KPMF Lot D design concept. Is there a motion to approve?
Wait, I have a point of order.
Sure.
Since this Lot D design includes the croquet courts, should we not be talking about the croquet courts first?
I'm open to that. Does anyone on the board object to that discussion?
I think they tie together.
I think they are tied together. Can we discuss motion 7 first, the motion to approve the croquet courts at Lot D? Is that acceptable to the board?
Yep. Yes, great.
Anyone saying no?
That's fine.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the croquet courts at Lot D?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And this is for conversation, just. so
Now we're
everybody
ready for
understands.
conversation. Brian, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you at least start and kick it off.
Will you go back to the timeline, please, Lauren?
It's going to take me.
No, that's all right. So let me start with rambling.
Can you put the microphone? I got to
Yeah,
hear
ramble
you.
into the mic.
Let me ramble into the mic. I've been on the board for 4+ years. There's many people who've been on this board for a long time and many people in the audience who've been out here a long time. One thing I've learned about projects is they go through cycle after cycle after cycle. There are people out there in the audience right now who were part of the pickleball cycle, and they're always amazed at how it works. And it seems like every project goes the same. What drove this conversation tonight is the fact that the 30% plan rule for Lot D has to be made by May 31st. So we actually have a meeting on Friday to finalize the design. If we're going to put croquet on Lot D, we need to make that decision, and we need to make that decision in the very short near term. So that's really what's driving this discussion. One of the things that really happens as you get down to D-Day on the discussion is you get one heck of a lot of feedback. Yes, I'm very aware of what went on the back porch. I actually went off both back porches and off the front porch. I'm totally off of them. I know Jim Hayes is totally off of them. I've been off of them 2 or 3 weeks. I could really give a damn. So that's not what's influencing me. But one thing you need to understand is that we as board members get feedback from an awful lot of people. And there's a lot of people in this room and in this community who are not nuts at all. They're very responsible citizens who reach out to us with their opinions. So we've had a lot of people coming back to us talking about the subject of parking, traffic, utilization and that. We have people who would love Heritage Hall to be the croquet. We have people who think that it's the last place it should be because it takes away the use from them and what it's going to do to traffic and parking and stuff like that. We try to find a balance, and there's no good answer. So where we ended up in the conversation is we looked at it and we looked at the size out there and we said, okay, how big is this? Does it really work? Yes or no? Have our doubts. We looked at Lot D and we said, okay, we're very aware of the parking. I heard the comments earlier about parking and everything out on Lot D. We said if we put one croquet court out, one croquet court means one lawn that would have 2 3/4 lawns that could play a full court for a regulation game or have 2 3/4 games. We said, then you would have that. We're already doing the one. We'd have it fenced in. We would have the lights. We would have a covering or sunshade and that type of stuff consistent with what we're going to do on pickleball. It would take up some of the parking. I don't think we have a drawing here. Maybe we do. I don't know. Do you have a drawing that they sent us? So we'll put it up here in a minute. And said, okay, if we're going to go with it, that's the option we go with there. Through further conversation, we didn't want to make it a croquet conversation. One board member felt strongly that we ought to really talk about putting horseshoes out there, putting shuffleboard out there so that we've got really a true lawn sports experience and that you could have people playing pickleball, you could have people playing croquet, you could have horseshoes, you could have shuffleboard. And that is really the conversation that has ensued. We've had tons of feedback, pro and con, all over the place on this one. And really, that's where we're at tonight. Now on the board, I can honestly tell you that on the board, we also have very strong opinions on different sides of that. And when we open it up to board conversation, you'll probably learn that tonight too. And really that to me is a decision, because to me, if we're going to put it on Lot D, we need to decide that tonight. If we're not going to put it on Lot D, then we know how to move forward with our Lot D decisions and we proceed. And then we got time. But that's really why we're having the conversation tonight. There has been a ton of resonant feedback on all sides that has happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And that's really what we've been evolving to, because we're down to 0 hour and making a decision. And that's really what drives it. When you look up here, let me reacclimate you while this gets centered. So the refresher here is we had the existing parking lot. To the left of it on mine and probably for you is the new parking lot. So what we would have is we would have asphalt for about 101, 102 parking spaces. Next to that, we have the 8 pickleball courts. What is drawn here would be the 2 shuffleball courts. I'm sorry, the 2 croquet courts, sorry. We would need to add shuffleboard and the other 2 this. We're going to get rid of the storage area to the left. This is what it would be. You would have the rest of the field there for lawn sports and overflow parking. And that's where we're at. And I think with that, Jackson.
Okay. Let me also point out that that last piece over there to the left, where we've got storage right now, that would potentially go away and be turned into more of the overflow parking. Yeah. Cindy.
Yes.
You've got comments.
Oh, you betcha.
Go ahead.
So I'm with the 2 Debbies that spoke and said when they looked at the agenda, they said, where did that come from? With moving the croquet courts to Lot D. So I went back, looking back to the video. I watched the video from January. And Brian started the meeting by saying, or this set portion of the meeting by saying, it's decision time. We've already determined that the civic corridor is not an option since there are too many other projects competing for this space. We don't believe East Village and North Village have adequate space. Goal tonight is to come to an understanding of what exactly has evolved this decision one more time and then put this project out for bid. And then there was discussion. Albert was talking about why he designed, and if you missed this early on, Albert came back to us with a Taj Mahal, wonderful community space. I mean, it had every bell and whistle you could think of, including a $30,000 celebration light pole. I don't know what one looks like, but it was $30,000. So we looked at it and said, no. So anyway, at this point, after all this discussion, I myself made the motion to approve the design concept with 1 and 2 lawn courts there, lawns, croquet lawns there. And that Jackson seconded it. And then Jackson asked how long it would take to get the information, and that we would look to a company that specializes in athletic fields, since the project would include leveling, drainage, maintenance, fencing, etc. And that was in January. On March 24th, we got a thing from Albert, and all that other stuff was gone, and two little lawn sports were at the side with fencing and whatnot. On April 13th, Lauren said that the bids have been solicited from 2 different companies and waiting for them to come back. On April 27th, Lauren said we're still waiting on the bids to come back and hoping to have it ready prepared for next week's 2 weeks hence meeting. On the 21st is when I saw the agenda for this meeting. So that's 2 weeks since that last meeting. And my question to everybody was, just like you said, what happened? I mean, verbatim, what happened? Brian was kind enough to, and I had several questions, kind enough to try to answer. So the next day I went over to, I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking croquet. So I got in the morning and I went over there to Heritage Hall and I looked. I'd been there several times with Celia and the lawn sports people, but I was looking at more spatially, okay? When I was back the other day, I was looking at the actual field, and it's a mess. If you look at it, there's a big hump. I'm not snazzy like Jackson. This is my visual aid. If you're standing here, but this is where the pool is, and this is the field. There's a hump in this field, and I could see it just looking at it. It also slopes to this side, which is why if you go over there, you see that this whole section here is all washed out and it's white sand. I imagine if we let it go, one of these days we can dig a hole and have a beach there because the drainage is so poor. So I looked and I thought, well, this has got Bermuda grass in it already, which is that real short little stuff. And I thought, well, maybe this is what we need to do. Just take that field and fix it. Now, I assumed that fixing this field would be on the schedule like all the other fields. I didn't see it on there, Lauren. I looked at it twice. And then I thought, well, maybe that's because we knew that this was coming up. Okay. So anyway, I kind of floated this idea. This is on the 21st. I didn't hear anything. Yesterday, I sent 3 different emails. With just slightly different changes. And I didn't get any response except from Celia on my thought. So here was my thought. You go there, you level off the field, right? Because it looks like a vacant lot. There's weeds and everything in it. So the field's in horrible condition. If we level off the entire field, install a more effective drainage system, which should be done anyway. I mean, if we want to be able to maintain the park the way it should be maintained, and check to see if the irrigation system is working for optimum coverage and preservation of the sod, replace or reseed the Bermuda, regularly treat for weeds and replace the mulch, it would be in much better shape. Albert's original proposal estimated $40,000 for site prep, so that would be the leveling and all that kind of stuff, and another $9,000 for a professional irrigation system, one of those rotor things that like you see on the golf courses. Over and above that, we'd be looking at new Bermuda sod and mulch. This would give the croquet group a better place to play, allow the board and the neighbors to assess the usage, determine if it's a more permanent facility is warranted, and gauge what the actual impact on parking will be. And this way, anyone in the community can continue to play anytime, anywhere in this field. No pavilions, no cabanas, no fencing, no security system, no $30,000 light post, just a nice flat, open field, which is all the croquet folks wanted in the first place. There's parking, I live, 2 blocks away. I know how congested Spring Park Street gets. That's visual aid. This is Celebration Avenue. It's Heritage Hall. This is Spring Park Street, okay? This over here is the only entrance right now into this either park or the pool, okay? So that's why everybody parks here. These scrubs that go all the way around here, if you've ever been there, there's all kind of bushes and stuff. Years ago, you couldn't even see through these bushes. There were so many. And I think what's happened over the years is as they died, the landscaper went in, pulled out all the old stuff, but didn't replace it. So it's kind of, like this, if you're looking through. If we put an entrance over here, and again, just with mulch or pavers, like so wide, so it's obviously an entrance to the park, and another one over here on, this is Spring Park Loop, and another one over here on Begonia, then people would be inclined to park here as well because they can get into the park, they being croquet people, people who want to play soccer, the Montessori school, anybody would enter for here, and then you could use up this parking.
Hey, Cindy,
Yes.
can I ask you, I want you to be able to speak as much as you need to, but in the interest
I'm
of
almost
time.
done. Yeah,
Okay.
well, but, so that to me is the best solution. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter where croquet goes, but I think that the space on the civic corridor, put basketball out there. People are also asking for basketball. This is a cheaper way to solve the problem. And it should make everybody happy, because I was asked by one of the croquet people, because they didn't understand what the issue was with the people who don't want it there. And I said, I think the main issue is with the fencing, because in that people can't use the whole field if they wanted to. No fencing, just a nice flat Bermuda surface, which is what we already have there now, and be done.
Are they okay with that?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
Celia, do you have comments?
I have a lot of comments piggybacking on what Cindy says. I don't understand why I was against it when I first heard we're going to put it on Lot D. Then I thought about it more and more and more. And I said, okay, well, maybe it'll work on the civic corridor. But my main issue is, and always will be, after the luau and the amount of people that showed up for the luau, our town events are growing and we can't accommodate everybody at Lakeside anymore, that we need every parking spot we can get on Lot D. That was the purpose. It's like we made a motion last year at an April 9th workshop to never speak again about repurposing Field 1. David made that motion, taking it off the table. Jackson's made a quote. It's called amenity insecurity. We're never going to talk about repurposing Field 1 again. We did all of that. We talked about it because I suggested let's just put everything on Lot D and make parking on Lot B. So I had that original suggestion. Fast forward to the fall, somebody has a brilliant idea. Oh, let's repurpose Field 1 and put pickleball on Field 1, which created a massive amount of drama in the community because we're taking the fields away from the kids. So we decided to put pickleball on Lot D and made sure that we made the parking available and the field would be grassed for the kids to practice on during practice when tournaments were going on or games are going on. Then we get to January's meeting, which I was away, the only meeting I missed last year. And now I'm saying, you know what? Maybe I missed something in January's meeting that's driving this decision for Lot D all of a sudden. So I went back and I listened to the meeting 3 times, didn't even know Albert was at the meeting, didn't even know he made all of these suggestions. And it was Brian, it was David Anderson, and it was Jackson who asked these questions. And Jackson said, to clarify, this plan does include open space, so we're not replacing, but we're enhancing this space. And then 2 weeks ago, we had our meeting and Brian discussed what a positive place this would be, a multi-generational facility.
That's
And
supposed
there
to get a Debbie
was-
one, read.
And there was a lot of drama in January on this whole thing. I took the brunt of it on social media, big time. My family took the brunt of it on social media, big time. I don't have a problem with the community expressing their feelings. I've gotten harassed, and now it's like, ha, we won, we're getting it moved. Got the post today on social media. We won. It's not about winning. I think we need to take the word group out of our vocabulary. It's not the pickleball group. It's not the lawn sports group. It's for the residents, the entire community of Celebration. When we build an amenity, it's for the whole community, not for a group. It's for the people that live here now, for the people that live in the future. We shouldn't be basing everything on rosters and emails and playlists. We're building it. A very smart lady I know says, if you build it, they will come. And if we build it, people will play it. I've heard negative about this, and like I said, I've taken the brunt of this. This was my original suggestion on Lot D last April 9th. And we kicked the can, finally came to a decision 2 weeks ago, spoke about it, signed, approved the minutes tonight, and now we went back and we're undoing everything that we've done. So I have a real problem with it. I think parking is going to be a big issue. So when we have our holiday fair, when we have our holiday concert coming up, and we're at the max, are we going to have a sign that says, sorry, folks, park's closed, can't get your car in, there's no place to park. Where are people going to go? We need that parking, and we fought to get that parking. It was treacherous being on the recreation committee as the board liaison, because all they did was fight about repurposing Field 1, taking Lot D. And we made it so that we would have extra parking. And now what are we doing? Because a handful of people are screaming into the community, they don't want it there. And you were correct, 100% correct, Jackson, when you said, if we put it in North Village, we'd have the North Village people upset. When we talk about Little League down East Lawn, that, if I had a Little League field put in front of my house, I'd flip out. And I'm for Little League. But at one point, when do we stop changing our minds? We're always changing our minds.
And to be clear, my proposal is not about croquet courts.
Okay.
It's just.
I want to make sure every board member gets heard. Let me go around,
All right.
and then if you want to say something more, is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, Celia, we good? We move on? Next board member?
Excuse me?
Are
What's up,
you
you
finished
want?
with your comments?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Jim, do you have any comments?
You're really gonna ask me to go next?
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
If you prefer.
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'm still.
Okay, why we're talking about this tonight, I view this as an evolving conversation. Again, all of us, as Vaughn pointed out at the beginning, we're all of the board members and committee members and task force and advisory groups are all volunteers. So we're not experts in a lot of this, but one of the things we value, and Jackson's done a great job with this, is valuing the process. Why we're talking about this tonight, pickleball has been on our radar screen for 3 years, maybe. I mean, way before, but more formally. Remember when we had 20 people come, whatever it was, to a meeting in this room? And anyway, so we're at this decision point tonight. If we're going to move forward, it's driven by, even though this says lawn sports, it's really driven by pickleball. Pickleball is what's driving this, and that's not anything negative, and I do not want to derail that at all. So we need to be as crystal clear as we can with KPM Franklin about what they put together in the large scope of things. Now, we do have a couple of off-ramps coming. KPM Franklin finishes their work.
which is design work, that then goes out to bid to companies. Now, KPM Franklin already told us what they thought it would cost, but they're not bidding on the build. Builders would bid on the build. And if KPM Franklin, reason we're moving forward is when they did an informal assessment, what was it, $600,000-$700,000 ballpark? Brian, ballpark, 6, 7, 8
For
for lot D with parking and pickleball period.
500 to 600.
Okay, so it was a reasonable reach. If the bids actually come in way higher, we have an offering because we don't have to accept any bids. We can say, okay, we can't build. It's $2 million. Don't quote me on that. I don't want that. That is too. But if it comes in reasonable, then we're going to move forward, award a contract, and then let construction begin. That's where we think it's going to happen. The reason we're at that decision point tonight is to keep KPM Franklin moving on track so we get it done. Is that a fair statement? Now, the adjustment, Jackson did a great job at the beginning of his second slide deck where you had 2 columns on the left side with the issues that we're considering about traffic, parking, this, that, this, and that. There were like 8 or 10 things. Those are evolving, thank you. Those are evolving for us. So the idea since the last meeting, because this is all evolving, is to add that to the bid. I'm sorry, add that to the design for KPM Franklin. So if you just you lock that in there, Brian showed us that earlier slide with where that would be. Add that in the design. Then when we go out to bid, we're going to have some decision points because then certain things could be locked off. We'll say, oh, to add on croquet here costs X. That's too much. At the same time, that also gives us a couple of months to work through those issues that you identified as we're finalizing heritage or lot D or nothing for lawn sports. So because that's where I think we are. We put it in we approve it tonight, which doesn't mean we're approving it there. We're approving it so it can go out to a construction bidder to make a bid is what it would cost. So we have some off ramps and we have sub ramps off of that. So it's not that it's decided that, and I think the wording here is not right. Motion to approve croquet courts at lot D. No, it's motion to approve croquet courts included in the design at lot D. It's really the precise wording of what it should be, which does not commit us to putting it in lot D. So I just want to keep our eye on the big picture here, which is pickleball is driving this. And it also gives us more time to talk with croquet folks, talk with neighbors, talk about the logistics of both locations, and then what the cost is going to be in either. So that's where I end up.
Okay. Jim, do you want to talk?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
So what changed is a great question. Obviously, when you look at things, what changed? The last meeting, we knew there was a group of people of some number that wanted to keep the fields open as open fields, right? In my mind at the time, that was not something that I was going to use to vote against Heritage Hall. Since that time, I've heard personally from residents and from other board members who've heard from residents, the people that weren't part of that agenda, so to speak, were concerned about traffic. They were concerned about parking. You know, we have some issues around the way that this town was designed and being able to get through the town, right? Especially with some emergency vehicles. So it is a big challenge for us and something we need to think about. So given that additional feedback and given that as you can see, the board is somewhat divided on this. And, one of the things that I wanted to do is try to come to some consensus. So what I did over the weekend was do the best I could to be a architect, or maybe just the person who draws it, working with my daughter a little bit, and kind of seeing what the effect of one full lawn or 2 full lawns would be on the parking. And obviously, well, not obviously, but I think you can see there, if you put 2, there's no question that it's taking up, by my count, about 50% of the parking. Whereas the one croquet lawn takes up about 24% of the parking that is in the drawing. I know that we have this landscape staging area that potentially we can adjust. I think we're looking at that. So that could make up for that, I think, as well. It's hard to tell because I'm not an architect. But the other thing that I wanted to do when I was left with a 2 versus 1, I was left with 1. I was struggling with that being the outcome for the task force and the people that have worked hard on this. And one of the things that I remember as this was being discussed that kind of drew me to the concept was the multi-generational aspect of it. So I looked at some of the original drawings with horseshoes and shuffleboard and saw that potentially if we used up maybe another basically 3 or 4% of the parking, 15 feet wide, that we could add those back in. And it would be there not only for the people who play croquet, but also for the people that play pickleball. So at one point, I thought I had consensus on that. Tonight, I'm not so sure. But that's where I'm at on this.
Okay. I want to address, first of all, I want to thank all the board members for their comments and their thoughtfulness and their work on this. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different views. And I think that in the spirit of an open conversation, we wanted to have this conversation in public. We wanted to explore those things. Cindy made the point that she wrote a lot of emails. To be perfectly candid, some of those emails said we shouldn't build anything at all. We should just stop. And then there were modifications and adjustments to that. And I think every board member read those emails. The fact that no one chose to reply is not anything other than we read it and we heard you. And tonight, I hope you feel like you've had the chance to explain what you really want to do, which is to have open play at Heritage without fencing, without any of the accoutrement.
Let me clarify something. You said that I said stop building.
Yeah,
That's not, well, no, that's not what I said. What I said was that the folks who live here in town need to understand that, a perfect example, when Tim and I built our home on Indigo, which is right across from the East Lawn, the park there behind the pool.
Cindy,
Just a minute, Jackson, no.
Let me just speak. And then
Jackson, no, let me finish the thing, because I want to explain, because you gave people the wrong impression.
Okay, go ahead.
And I want them to understand. When we paid a premium for that lot, we were told that just because this is open now does not mean it's going to be open in the future, right? Many people probably weren't told that when they bought their thing. So if everyone would prefer to leave these lots open, which would be fine with me, then they also have to understand that if down the road, those things where you shoot the balls and they whatever, if that becomes the rage, then we're not going to have any place to put it because we don't have any land anymore. That's all. I didn't say stop building. I just said that we have to be careful what we build and where we build it.
All right.
Yes. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you for the clarification. I want to make the point that in looking at the two options of Lot D, Celia, I'm just going to ask to have my time and then I'll be glad to go back to you, okay? In looking at the two options of Lot D and Heritage, there are a couple of other considerations. Could you go back to the consideration slide for me? We know that contractors didn't want to bid on Heritage because the project was too small. It was too difficult. And so we finally got a bid, which was a pro forma bid just a couple of days ago. And that was one of the questions. Another question was with regard to the run rate or the maintenance. It would be less expensive to do maintenance on the Delta lot because we've already got crews out there and they're already doing work on the fields. And so we know that is one consideration. I think we can safely assume that outside of Cindy's just change the field and the lawns, which is certainly a different proposal. But if we are comparing putting something that is a lawn sports facility on Heritage versus constructing a facility as part of Delta lot, the Delta lot construction would be almost certainly less expensive because we've got the crews out there. It's part of the landscaping and the setup and the irrigation and so on. So I think that there are some reasons with respect to those three items. As compared to parking and traffic and access, I don't think there's any doubt that traffic and access are less of a problem on Delta than they are on Heritage. Parking, we have tried to accommodate. You've heard Jim say it's a 24% loss of parking. I believe that if we got rid of the construction traffic there, we might gain back some or all of that. We certainly would gain back some, maybe all of that and something more. When it comes to compatible uses, I think it's obvious that pickleball and lawn sports might draw on some of the same demographic. And so there would be that opportunity. Of course, there's bathrooms and lighting, and it's already built out there. In terms of lawn size, one of the things that happened in the last 2 weeks is that many of us went out to Heritage and we actually walked and looked at where the fields would have been placed. The reality is when you stand out in that lot, you see that in order to put up the lots and the fencing or the tree line, by the time you've done that, forgetting the Taj Mahal, I think we all agree that that was not a good plan. But by the time you've got those pieces in, you're looking at a substantially reduced size for Heritage. And that is a question that I think is a reasonable one to ask, in which we could differ about whether it's enough space or not enough space. In my view, when I put all of those items together, I'm not in favor of just resodding Heritage and making that the solution. I would rather give a better lawn sports facility, as Jim has described, with shuffleboard and some other pieces, and the 2 3/4 size courts or lawns on that space and be able to move forward and get it done. Celia, I know that you want lawn sports to happen. And I know that let me finish.
Go ahead.
And I know that you have worked hard with the task force and you have lobbied hard for us to do the right thing. I believe that doing something at Lot D is better than trying to wait and fight this battle over and over again for Heritage. And I think ultimately it's the better solution. So my point is that as we take this vote tonight, I think that the question is, do we choose to go forward at this point, as David said, with Lot D at this 30% cutoff level? Or do we continue to wrestle with it and draw out more conversation, more acrimony, more anger about it, more lobbying about it, without any real resolution and the cost going up if we choose to eventually go to Lot D? So now, having said my piece, and every member on the board has had their chance to say something, I'd like to give anybody a chance to say anything they want in rebuttal, and then we're going to call for a vote.
Well, once again,
Cindy,
and again,
go ahead.
again, I brought out this Myers-Briggs test. Sometimes I'm talking and nobody seems to understand what I'm saying. There is not going to be an extra cost for maintaining this lawn because that's what's there already. So that whole place is Bermuda with weeds stuck over here. So there's not going to be any extra maintenance. There's not going to be extra cost because we mow it or maintain it regularly, just like we do all the parks, except this one, there's weeds there. So we just need to treat it for weeds and water it.
Okay.
So there's no extra cost.
Brian?
I have 6 or 7 things. This just may take a minute.
Into the microphone.
I got 6 or 7 things. This may take a minute. Cindy sent a lot of emails, but I sent an awful lot of emails too. I think Cindy would acknowledge that her and I traded a ton of emails.
And spreadsheets.
And spreadsheets. So when we were having the pickleball conversations, I mean, I still remember the meeting on January 22nd with a passion. It was 3 hours of brutal hell when I got to be on the phone and just take question after question after question. We were playing pure, unadulterated pickleball politics all the way through the fall, in January, and through the February election, if everybody is honest. The last thing we were going to do was introduce croquet or lawn sports to Lot D while we were trying to get through the pickleball mess. So let's just be honest.
What month are you talking about?
I am talking about the period when the election was going on and everything, and we were trying to finalize all the pickleball decisions. So, but it affected it. We were not going to add lawn sports to the Lot D conversation. It just wouldn't have worked. And that was an example. And the reason we went to the Field 1 redesign is because no one was going to let it go on Lot D. We made the decision, fine, we'll do a Field 1 redo, which resulted in us, okay, let's go back to Lot D. That's not such a bad solution. That is the reality of the situation. And I can see people nodding their heads yes, because they understand we had to play politics. So now we're to the situation where we've had a lot of people talking to us and we've evolved. The reason, and I never responded to your email on the lawn, because I think that is totally different than what I've heard that the people want for a croquet court. What I've heard is a good croquet court is like a putting green on a field. So we're not going to make Heritage Hall like a putting green and keep it looking like a putting green for longer than a week. And it's going to get used by kids. It's going to get used by wild boars. We're going to have armadillos out there. We all know the routine. I've been trying with what I am doing to give them an honest to God real home. It may not be the home they wanted. It may not be the home that they thought they were going to get. But if you have a home on Lot D with it that is properly maintained like a putting green, first off, that's not going to be cheap. I don't want to lie to anybody, but it will be there and it'll be maintained and it'll work. Put it by the pickleball, put it by the other two things. At least it is something. I personally believe that if the croquet group says, give us Heritage Hall, we'll fix the grass, and then we'll be done, you will be extremely disappointed very quickly because you know what's going to happen to it, because I've heard the stories of what you try to do to play. So that is what's leading to these tough decisions. It's not going to change at all what we're hearing from people in the community. We're hearing from a ton of people. They don't post on the back porch. They send us emails, they call us, they talk to us. And that is the reality of what happens when you get to 0 hour decision time. And that's really what's happening here.
Anything else?
So that is really why we are where we are and why I still think the croquet people, lawn sports people are better off with a permanent home that may be less than what they wanted in a perfect world. I'm sorry about that. But when I also have all kinds of people talking with me about parking and everything out there. And you've heard Celia talk about the parking. That is why we've ended up here in my mind.
I was talking about parking, just to be clear, I was talking about parking on Lot D.
And that's what I was just parking about.
All right, thank you. Celia, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so the motion that was made on I don't know how this works, but the motion that was made on January 12th about Mrs. Swisher motion to approve the design concept shown at the meeting and to proceed with obtaining bids for both alternative with 1 or 2 croquet ones at Heritage Hall. Mr. Mummy seconded the motion and it was passed unanimously. What happens to that motion now? We never even got it. We got 1 bid. What happened
to the
to
thing we got yesterday?
Yes, what happened to when Albert said in that meeting, you really should get a company that specializes in building these lawns? I got a business card, I did my homework, I spoke to someone who specializes in building croquet lawns. But we don't have anything. We didn't even make a suggestion of putting 1 lawn at Heritage. It automatically got shifted to Lot D.
Well,
Jim, Jim,
one thing that we.
I want everybody to be heard.
All right.
Okay, Jim?
I don't have anything else to say on this.
David?
Yeah, I have one question, Jim. I need a clarification on a question. You said 24% loss of parking. You mean 24% loss of parking on the grassed area?
The grass area,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Just, that's what I thought
That's
you meant.
24% of.
Of what it would have been. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So two last things. One is again, we're deciding tonight about giving KPM Franklin some guidance as we move forward. We are not authorizing funding because we've already paid them. So we already have the contract. When we get the bids, then we're going to have to talk more formally about the run rate, because that's required in charter for anything over $250,000. We'll have to talk about and identify and share with the community the run rate is X amount per year. So then I'm just going to respectfully disagree with just something you just said in your last remarks. You said we have a decision tonight about Lot D or continuing the dialogue to decide. I don't think it's an or. I think it's if we approve the Lot D design with croquet included, that gives us time to talk about the two options. So I don't think it's saying definitely lawn sports goes to Lot D. I think we get the design because we have the off ramp up ahead when we get the bids broken out. I believe that.
Why would you have them design something instead of following through and getting a bid on what it would cost to flatten and improve that field at Heritage Hall?
That's
We
something
never got
separate.
that.
That's something
The thing we got
That's
is,
not KPM Franklin.
Okay,
I
let me go to Jim.
Can you talk, Lauren, can you talk about the environment now in terms of getting bids and labor and everything like that, so everyone's clear?
Sure. So in terms of getting bids, Brian kind of alluded to this earlier. A lot of times it's difficult to get multiple bids on projects, especially what companies consider smaller projects, which unfortunately our basketball court is considered a smaller project. Resurfacing the tennis courts is considered a smaller project. Bidding the croquet lawns at Heritage was a significant struggle. We reached out to, I think, a total of 10 different companies to get bids and finally got this last one in that was really more of this is a bare bones bid because we just don't have time to sit down and do a full design based on Albert's concept. But
to be totally fair, this is a company that you're using for a lot of other business, and they did you a favor, but they probably are the last people we'd want doing this because they have no expertise in it.
correct. So we were just trying to get initial ballpark numbers of what it would cost to do build croquet courts with some irrigation tapping into the existing irrigation at Heritage Hall. It wasn't meant to be a full-fledged itemized bid of this is exactly what it would cost. It's more of the just ballpark range, so you guys would know what you were getting yourselves into in terms of including it at Heritage or in Lot D.
All right. We have spent a significant amount of time. We've heard from all of the board members. We're not taking public comment at this point. And so who made the original motion?
Brian and Jim.
Right. I heard a rewording of the motion in our discussion.
Amend my motion, please.
Please.
So I'll withdraw the old motion and I'll make a motion to improve the inclusion of croquet courts in the design at Lot D.
All right.
Along with
Yeah, croquet and other lawn sports.
Along with
some
the other
other
sports.
Just say lawn sports.
Rephrase that.
Yeah.
Rephrase that.
Okay, so I'll combine items 6 and 7.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve the inclusion of croquet courts, shuffleboard, and horseshoes in the Lot D design work for the 30% design that we're asking KPM Franklin to prepare for us.
And who seconded the motion?
I did. I would withdraw my previous second and second this motion.
All right, I'm going to call the vote now as a roll call vote. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? All right, David, your vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Hold on. So if we
Would
vote for, wait, I have to let me understand. So if we vote for this, then Heritage Hall is dead.
No,
No.
no, you
We're
didn't
gonna pay
listen to what
somebody
I
to
said.
design a court that we may or may not use.
As an option,
We've
at the very least.
You're
It's
not,
at least an option.
you're not paying any additional money at this point. This is
So
why
this is
you want
already
it.
included.
This is
in-
why you want to include it at this phase, because if we try to include any additional drawings after this phase, it's gonna cost you a significant amount of money. If we include it now, we're not incurring additional
We're
design.
not
Material.
Material additional, I guess it's okay.
We have David's yes.
Yes.
Celia?
No,
Cindy?
No,
I wasn't going to have Ariel vote. Brian?
And I'm going to be a vote yes, because I want to try to give croquet a permanent, long-term home.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. The motion passes 4-2. All right, we're now moving on to item number 8. Thank you all for your comments and thoughts. Motion number 8 is to approve the payment allocation for dog park lights. But we need a better motion that actually says what that allocation is. So would someone like to make a motion as to how we're going to allocate those lights? David?
I'll make a motion in the spirit of what I raised 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I make a motion that, because we've already approved I make a motion that the dog park committee fund $10,000 worth of the lights. And they have raised 18,800 or something like that. But I think that's been a good faith effort, but I think that the vast majority, if not all, so I'm just gonna say the vast majority. So yeah, it's a $38,000 project. 10,000 should be paid by the dog park committee, the rest by CROA appropriate funding.
Is there a second for discussion? Okay. Discussion. Jim?
It's my understanding, could be wrong, that when the dog park was originally built, part of the discussions of the board at that time, there were at least some verbal commitments that CROA would, as part of this, supply lighting, and that has not happened in all these years. So I won't vote no to that. I'll vote yes, but I prefer that all of it come from CROA.
You can change the motion if that's part of the discussion.
I would agree with Jim. I would like to see CROA take on this obligation. I'm not sure that we should have a precedent in which we ask committees to use their funds for something like this. We pay for a lot of things out of CROA, and I would rather see the committees use their money for other things that might be enhancements and not infrastructure. So I would respectfully ask that you amend the motion to 100% be paid from CROA.
I'm happy, and Celia left the room. She was the second, but I mean, I've argued that same point for years, and I thought this was a compromise, so I'm happy to go all the way.
Okay.
So I would.
Any other conversation from the board? We'll wait for Celia because we need the approval of the second.
I have Brian as the second.
What's that?
Brian second.
Oh, you seconded.
There were two of them.
Would you approve the second? Yes?
You do approve the second? So I'll say this should 100% be funded by CROA, and thank you, Dog Park Committee, for all their efforts, and use your funding for more whimsical things that are not essential.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a roll call vote and hopefully Celia will return. Yes? No? David, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
I vote yes. So at this point, we've got.
Motion passes.
Motion passes at least 4-1. We'll ask Celia for her vote when she returns to the room.
Jim, thank you for raising that challenge.
Oops, and is that Celia?
Yes.
Celia, the motion was changed. That's right. The motion was changed for CROA to pay in full. Right now, the vote is 4-1 in favor of CROA paying the entire amount of the dog park. How do you vote?
Lights. The dog park. We already, wait, I know we had this discussion before.
David said $10,000.
I changed the motion
Based on Jim's comment.
to pay for it.
Yeah, I'm for that.
Okay, so
That's a
it's 5-1. All right. Yeah, heck yes. All right.
So we're paying for the full.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I got a
Okay.
text. from
Dog
Jay
park.
to tell her.
Find something good to do with your $18,000. I'm sure you will. All right. Motion number 9 is a motion to initiate the finding process for, I believe it's now 11 non-compliance items. Board member.
I would like to pull item number 9 because we just received additional information, so that would make it 11 total items.
You want to pull it entirely?
No. Pull.
No,
I'm sorry,
pull item.
Pull item 9 on our list.
On the
Item 9
list.
on your list.
Okay,
happens to
so
be
we removed
right on
item
the
item
agenda.
9. Okay,
We're removing it.
so we got 11 properties.
Removing property 9.
Okay.
Okay, so now, is there a motion to initiate the finding process of 11 properties, non-compliance items, through notifications of the covenants meeting to approve or reject the fine?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Number 10, motion to approve a resident's request for a payment plan. This came before us at the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Or for discussion?
I'll make the motion for discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Board, you'll remember that this was a resident who had, well, Lauren, do you want to explain?
So a resident emailed us, they are close to the lead phase. They've proposed a 6-month repayment plan to get updated into their assessments. So we put it before the board.
This is a tough one. It feels tough to me. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. We would like to be working with the resident. On the other hand, it seems like it's a big amount. What is management's recommendation here?
I don't have one.
Great, thanks.
That's a true vote. That's a true
Thanks
vote.
for nothing.
I don't know what your past practice has been, so I don't have that historic knowledge. So I
Well,
would
what you do
say
for one,
my-
you do for all.
yeah, my belief is your past practice was not to grant payment plans, and that's
Cindy,
my.
do you remember?
Not to grant payment plan?
Yeah.
Oh, we used to do a ton of them. We used to have 10 or 12.
Not in recent years, not in
But not,
recent
but
years.
not for a
Oh,
long
no,
time,
but I
am I
mean, it
right?
was,
Yeah.
and that's before you got an attorney involved in the collection process.
Oh, good, I thought you were going to say before you got an attorney involved on the board.
Yeah.
So I don't think in recent years we've done it. My gut tells me it's a bad practice to go down that road, and I'm opposed to it. But if someone can make a good argument why we should do it, I'm certainly willing to listen to it. Is there that argument?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't give them the opportunity if they're willing to pay 700.
Yeah.
Whatever to clear it up in 6 months.
Well, that,
The worst case scenario is they default and it goes on.
Right, but it's, what you're talking about is a higher one. I actually think we should renew the option for a payment plan for a designated amount of time. Let's say a year or the rest of this board's reign, if you will.
Isn't this just for the rest of this year, though?
Yeah, it's-
I think it is.
It's just a 6
We
month.
used to put it,
Well, no, what I'm saying is not just this.
Well, that's what's in front of us. Unfortunately, we can't make a sweeping thing because I think under the law, we really have to deal with each request individually. So,
So
but it
this,
has precedential value,
Yeah,
right?
well, I will speak to my yes vote for it, meaning also that we should
Yeah.
open it up to other people. Maybe we can entertain that at the next meeting.
Celia?
so this is for 6-month payment,
so
1 month at a time.
1 month at a time, right?
we used to cap it off at a year.
We can't give them the chance to pay this?
I'm simply asking the bigger question because once we've done it, we have opened the door and now that's on the record that we've done it here. Doesn't mean we have to do it in the future, but it's there and it's a fairly strong position to take. Brian, were you going to say something?
I mean, if they've asked for 6 months, I wouldn't give them more than 6 months.
So we have a motion to approve the resident's request for a 6-month payment plan and a second. Any other conversation? Cindy? Did you want to say? Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take a roll call vote. Brian?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Celia?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. All right, motion is approved. Next is a motion to approve the holiday concert artist contract. The board has seen the contract. We will not announce the name.
We're at number 11.
Oh, what did I miss? Oh, 3 resident fee waiver requests. Sorry. Do we have a motion to approve 3 resident fee waiver requests?
So
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye. Motion passes. Now we get to the motion to approve the holiday concert artist request. Very exciting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We can't tell you the name because it's a secret, right?
It is?
It is, because I told everybody already.
It's still a secret.
Still a secret.
It's still a secret. All
It
right.
doesn't say secret on here.
That's why there's an asterisk next to it. on
Asterisk
the-
means not
I
revealed.
thought if you're the liaison to the committee, you should know that.
Let him make the big announcement.
I do have one question though.
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
Without revealing the name of the artist.
When Was this already signed, this contract?
It has not been signed.
All right, deposit?
No.
Okay, so under equipment and hospitality, because I see how much this is costing, it says the purchaser hereby agrees to provide at purchase's sole cost and expense a first-class sound and lighting system to include the equipment and technical specifications set forth on the artist rider. Am I missing something there? How much more is it gonna cost besides the,
What's the full cost?
This is your full cost.
And that's a pretty standard.
with us
cost.
going out and getting the equipment?
We already have the equipment that's needed and they're bringing most of their own equipment.
We have the equipment for this?
We have equipment and they're bringing most of their equipment. It's not gonna
This is
cost
what
you
happens
extra.
normally.
This is a
Okay.
normal
I
thing.
just wanna
All
make
right,
sure.
in the interest of moving along, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can you say heck I? Like,
Heck, aye.
like heck, yeah?
All right. Item number 13 is a motion to approve a tennis contract. Let me get if someone would make that motion in a second for discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Now, Lauren, could you explain where we are on this?
So this modification to the tennis contract will extend only to December 31st of this year to give the Recreation Committee time to prepare and put forth an RFP. That is the first item on their to-do list this year and will be the main topic of their next meeting. The contract limits the Advantage Tennis Program to 2 courts, Monday through Sunday, courts 4 and 5.
Could you tell us where those courts are located?
Those are the courts located closest to the pool.
So court 1 is near Mirasol and 2, then we've got 3 in the middle, then 4 and 5 up by the pool. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Then it adds the use of court 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoons from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. The contractor will be paying $10 an hour per court for usage rather than the former 20% per participant. And then the other modification requirement is the contractor will notify Parks and Recs Department by noon the Friday, the week prior of their upcoming week schedule, so that can be posted for residents. So they will know when courts 3, 4, and 5 will be open for their use and not scheduled for the tennis pro.
Does this create more open play for residents?
It does.
And it's not a perfect solution.
And it's for 6 months.
Transition.
It's for 6 months. Yes.
The question's been raised, should we allow non-residents to play on the tennis courts if they are part of the partners program? What's management's view of that?
You have non-residents participating in almost every partner program. So making that change for just tennis seems a little arbitrary.
That
So
would be,
being consistent.
Do we have a plan in place to monitor compliance with this agreement? That is, that the partner cannot show up in court 3 on the morning and kick people off.
Yes, we've discussed some different monitoring options with the Parks and Recs Department, getting creative with them and maintenance, as well as using the cameras for, to just spot check regularly. And then I will be talking with Darren about asking them to wear their pros to wear specific colored wristbands so we can identify the pros and what court they're on.
And how did the Recreation Committee, what was their recommendation and how did they vote?
They were a unanimous vote to approve this.
Right, yeah. Questions from the board? Brian?
So just to be clear, this is a Band-Aid. The old system was totally unworkable and did not work well. I mean, it was hard to audit and it resulted in accusations. The problem with our tennis program is the same problem that we have with a few other programs. They've become too big and too popular. We're gonna, so we're gonna do an RFP for tennis. We're gonna have to do an RFP on a few other things. And at some point, we got to decide what is the appropriate size for these different partner programs in celebration.
Cindy?
I would just say that if I had to change this, I would not allow private lessons to non-residents on our courts.
Is that part of the contract, Lauren?
It does not specify.
But I mean,
Do we have any idea how many private lessons are given to non-residents? Mickey, do you have any sense of that?
It has to be at least under 50% non-residents.
Under 50%.
Under 50% non-residents. So there are some group lessons, I imagine, that are given in which we have non-residents, but a one-on-one lesson to a non-resident would not be acceptable, correct? Because it then is more than 50%, or is it the cumulative number of people?
The overall.
The overall?
Correct.
Okay. Is that something the Recreation Committee could look into?
I think it's part of the RFP.
I think that's part of the RFP.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? All right, I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We are now at 8 o'clock and we are at the discussion items. With the board's approval, I want to move through and probably we're going to drop some things off of the discussion items. I would like to drop item 3 and 4 out from tonight. I do want to do the advisory group chair reports, and I'd like to have a brief discussion of the K8 contract, but I'm going to drop item 8 off of tonight as well. Is there any objection to that?
Can we keep 3 on? Because that seems to be
Okay.
a major,
If you want it, sure, go ahead.
Item 8, does that create an issue for us leading up to the event if we decide we weren't going to serve food?
Is it?
No, we have some alternatives that we're still juggling that I think that might appease everybody.
Okay. Any other objections to that? We'll keep item 3 on the discussion item. Okay. All right. So, Lauren, I'm going to turn it over to you for item number 1, transition and management update.
I have one thing, and that's introduction of Liz Wargo, who is our new Lifestyles and Communications Director.
Want to tell us about Liz's background?
Liz joins us from Point Siena. She's been their Lifestyles Director for over a year.
3 years.
3 years, sorry. Prior to that, she was in hospitality. She has a background in lifestyles work as well as Parks and Rec. So she will be a great asset to us.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Thank you. And most of the time, our board meetings are nicer than this. All right, let's go to item number 2, updates for ongoing projects. Lauren?
As you've seen in your board packet, we have a laundry list of projects going on, starting in progress, and some are nearing completion. So you should start seeing more before and after pictures. We're working on getting those all compiled and put together so we can put on the website as well for residents to see those projects in conjunction with that 60, 90, 120-day action plan that you've all seen from Natalie. We're moving and shaking.
And we appreciate all the work that you and your staff and team are doing. We know that we are asking you to work at a high velocity. We appreciate all of that effort that's going on. I think the only other question I would have is how is hiring and staffing coming?
We are mostly full up on the management team. We just have one spot that recently opened back up, but we've got somebody temporarily filling that position, possibly permanently filling it if we do not find other candidates. Other than that, we just hired another part-time park and pool monitor. We've hired a full-time park coordinator as well to help Nikki's team. So that should help with security at our locations as well. So we're getting there.
All right, good. Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, let me go to item 3, playground access control. You want to frame that up for us?
Sure. The board has gotten a number of emails requesting fencing and access control be put around the playgrounds that do not have it. I requested just kind of a generic bids from a couple of different vendors that we use regularly on what it would cost. It's about $50 a foot to add in fencing around the parks, plus the access control adds another $2,000 to $5,000, depending on if we have to change the panel out at those locations.
plus hedges around it, no doubt.
Yes.
Comments or questions from the board?
Somebody's raising their hand.
So
We'll get you. We'll do the board first. Brian?
I have a real problem with limiting access. Can't hear you. I have a real problem limiting access to all our parks and everything. I mean, we are not a gated community. People buy here for access. I will fully agree that people come in here sometimes with kids and they play. I can guarantee you, every time my grandkids are here, they play. It's what makes Celebration special, in my opinion, is that it's open. Some areas like Lakeside are closed, I think for specific reasons. I can understand on the civic corridor why we do it for security purposes and stuff like that. But if you're a Long Meadow playground or Spring Park, let your kids play. That's my personal opinion.
David?
So just to clarify, we're talking about, this is about those parks where we have playgrounds where there is no fencing currently. I mean, there's a couple of parks in North Village that have, the big one is Lakeside. So we're talking about adding limited access, adding the limitations. Yeah. Where we haven't had it for 20 years.
I'll just say that I'm not a believer in fencing in the playgrounds. I think that the community was built on the idea of open access where we could do it. I think where we put in limited access, it's been because of security questions. And I think it's reasonable to do that, but I like the idea of open fields. So having said that, any other board comments before we go to the public? Okay, come on up and you get 3 minutes and tell us who you are and what your address is.
Catherine Rupert, 915 Jasmine Street in the main village.
Go ahead.
I'm a founder here. I've been here 25 years. I raised my 3 kids, and I wanted to ask the question about the fencing around Long Meadow Park. I understand the concern for parents who have small kids, but there hasn't been a fence there for 25 years, and I think that there shouldn't be a fence. What type of fence? If they wanted a small fence, people would climb over. If they want, how tall will the fence be? That will look not aesthetically pleasing to the corridor. And I just want to remind people about, yes, we're evolving and we add pickleball courts and this and that, but we got to remember how it was designed with open green fields. We can't always put everything on these, open green fields in the middle of Long Meadow Park, and we don't want to fence it. It just would not be how this town was originally designed, planned. We have to go back to the pattern book and kind of go back to the roots of how this was. This was an open field, open playground, not a fenced in with a gate. It would not look right, and I'm against it. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie?
Just wanted to also speak to the access and fencing issue. I understand why it's needed downtown. There's so many visitors, and the civic corridor, because that's a different, not as monitored area, but I think it would really deflect, at least from Long Meadow, from the neighborhood, the neighbors around the area. Also, a lot of the kids come there after school and they play to their parents, can pick them up. A lot of parents pick up there. It's a safe area for them to be. And again, particularly on, as a founder, new urbanism was what we were built on. It's not a gated community. It's not intended to be. And I just feel like if we fence everything in, it's just really going to deflect from what we value. So, thank you.
Catherine, I apologize for stepping out. I'm an old man, but I read your email, so I'm assuming it was consistent with that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I know where Debbie
And
stands.
again, I understand the concerns of the parents, but.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted to apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
Being old and drinking too much water. All right, any other comments online or in the room? All right, so.
Do other board members agree?
Huh?
Do the other board members agree that we don't want fences?
I don't.
Well, if we were to take, this is not an action item, so we could take a sense of the board. And I'm glad to do that, but it's not a formal vote. So if you'd like me to take a sense of the board, I'm glad to do that. How would you vote, Mr. Ketzel?
Well, I'd vote no. I made that clear. I'm just curious if I was in the minority or if other people agree.
Yeah.
Even if you put a 6-foot fence on,
They
it's not going to
still
keep people.
Wait, let me do one at a time.
Yeah.
How would you?
Even if you put a 6-foot fence up, it's not going to keep them out.
So you would be opposed to fencing?
Yes.
Okay, Celia?
I'd be opposed to it.
Jim?
Opposed.
Opposed.
And I would be opposed. So that's where we're standing right now. I don't know that there's a reason to take any action at this time based on the sentiment of the board. Thank you all for your comments.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're skipping drainage issues, covenants. I think we do need to say something quickly. Lauren, you want to tell us very quickly where we are in covenants?
So since May 13th, so May 13th to May 20th, there have been 73 new inspections, six re-inspections where they go back after the initial, 88 new violations sent out, 12 resale inspections, 17 inspections to address items that for upcoming meetings, 9 inspections addressing complaints that we received either in phone, via email, at the counter, over the phone, various different ways. 26 ARC inspections and 9 administrative projects, which is usually also a complaint. So a total of 240 roof contacts in that 2-week time frame.
That's in 2 weeks.
Is that 2 weeks or, no, that was 1 week.
Oh, May 13th to May 20th, sorry.
Yeah.
1 week.
Yeah, 1
So
week.
in 1 week, 240 contacts. And
I just want to add, I'm sorry, there's
Yes.
actually like 124 violations versus the 88. More were submitted that Monday, so from the.
so let's talk about violations for a minute and the way that you're planning to do this going forward. You want to lay that out for us? Yes? No? You're not ready to talk about it? Okay, fine.
Right.
Two questions.
Sure, go ahead. Way to leave me hanging out on the limb.
I would say the appropriate people have not been.
Oh, I see. Okay,
informed.
fine. Never mind. All right, David, go ahead.
Two follow-on questions, what you said. If, I know you're just really ramping up, so 73 basically new inspections, is that?
Yes.
So how on track is that when we think about quarterly inspections for each of our homes?
I will say beginning of Q3, you will be fully ramped up and we'll be able to do a celebration style inspection of every roof once a quarter.
Okay, so it's gearing up on track, and of course, the staff is getting their bearings.
Correct.
Yeah. And you have individual staff members assigned to individual villages, so there's some memory there. The other question is a follow-on, I think it was the last, one of those things where you said through email or the portal, people, how about the backlog from November, December, from when Grand Manners took over the contract? Are all of those, if you will, flushed out, meaning those complaints that from November, December, January, February, March, April, May, have all of those been inputted into an inspector's repertoire so that they go check it out?
So
Or are we, in other words, are we caught up or not yet?
No, you're not caught up. You're not going to be caught up until.
They're caught up from those that have been posted by residents.
Those are almost caught up.
Okay.
You're still working through the tail end of violations, getting through the final finding process from your CCMC complaints.
Got it.
And you'll still see those in your appeals meetings through the next couple of months.
Okay.
Once those are all done and completed, you'll be fully seeing Grand Manners complaints.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Cindy, you're the liaison to covenants. You have anything to add?
Just that, we're still catching up.
I'm glad we're staffed. I'm glad that the inspectors are out there. I do know there is a plan in the works, which apparently I'm not supposed to talk about yet. So when we get to that point, I think we will continue to make progress on the inspections. And we appreciate the cooperation of everyone in town in keeping their homes up to the quality that we would like. All right, with that, we are now moving to the advisory group chair reports. Thank you all for staying so long. The first group that we're hearing from is the Communications Advisory Group. That's Janine Brandt. Janine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. Being cognizant of time, I'll be sure to keep this brief, but thank you all for having us here tonight. So our group, since our charge's inception, has been working diligently to determine the current state of communications and where we need to go from there, identifying those critical gaps, challenges, and opportunities primarily related to omni-channel communication and the key groups that we work with within Celebration. So based on the charge, we've acknowledged some primary points that we're focusing these audits, discussions, and solutions surrounding. So who are we communicating to? What are their personas? And expanding this further than just who is a resident? Who are the owners, the renters, the new residents, the visitors? So expanding all those different types of personas. What are we communicating about? What are the directives surrounding the communication? And how do we time the way that we do our communications? When are we communicating specific actions and items to the community? For instance, and you can see this up there as well, but for instance, when are we communicating when different meetings are happening? When are we communicating different changes to agendas, things like that. What are we communicating and why in the specific format that we've been doing? So why is it digital? Why is it traditional? So looking into that. And then how can we make communications as effective as possible for every single resident? So that's been the primary piece of our charge. And we know that a strategy and framework is critical to long-term goals here. And so we're working diligently to understand how changes occur over time with communications, why they have, and how to improve the nature and delivery. So in current status, we've done a lot in the 25 days we have been an advisory group. And the board can attest, we're sending weekly reports so that everybody's able to see what's going on. But we've performed audits of all of our digital channels and are in the process of auditing all traditional channels and doing deep dives in the channels. So Krista Thompson, who's here tonight as well from the advisory group, has been diving into the back end of the website, a very fun and tedious process. Tomorrow, we are going into how newsletter distributions go and meeting with Liz to be able to discuss her previous experience and how we can bring that to Celebration. We also are working with other town hall staff members to identify these gaps and bandwidth issues and developing stakeholder and community surveys to identify critical issues from the community. And then lastly, our final assessment to the board will be high-level guidance and strategy based on individualized feedback and channel plans. And if anyone has any questions about communications and what we're doing, please contact us at communications@townhall.celebration.fl.us. And our next meeting is on 6/1 at 4 p.m. and it is both here and hybrid, so you can join on Teams.
Questions from the board? Comments?
Yeah, comment.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Doing a marvelous job, all of you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you know where to find us.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Celebration Ed.
Yeah.
Or Communications Ed.
All right. The second advisory group chair is Celebration Hall Advisory Group, and that's Dory Moyer.
And I'm going to be more brief than that.
Okay.
Oh,
Go
Right
ahead.
after make you.
Oh, my.
Dory Moyer. The Celebration Advisory Group was basically approved and established April 27th of 2022. The members are Dave Berlsman, Tom Hall, Dave Hume, Paul Kinser, Dory Moyer, Paul Rashkin, Vaughn Roberts, and Diane Vassallo. Our basic directive was to determine the best use for this building, the 851 building, Lot B, and the current theater downtown. We've had 5 meetings over the past 25 days, and usually they're about at least 2 hours long. And we've had 2 open meetings with residents and the CROA board and 3 informal workshops. We've also toured the theater, and we also have toured this building on both the office space behind and of course all the meeting spaces. And we've had our trip up to the Lot B as well. So basically, as part of our directive to determine the best use for the 851 Lot B and the theater downtown, we have accumulated at least 100 pages of documents, maps, blueprints. We sent out questionnaires to management. We have emails. We have existing engineering reports and lots of research. But we have just recently requested some additional rendering surveys and such regarding the expansion options of these locations. And we have submitted to the board and management, which we hopefully, potentially, these already exist. And we just need to take a look at them. All this information is being compiled by the advisory group. And we have someone who's summarizing everything. We're taking our questionnaires. Everything will be in there and available for review once it's completed. There's also a link. We also have a link as well in Teams where residents can email comments to us, questions for us, and they will go to Lauren, and then Lauren will direct them to the entire group. That is celebrationhall@townhall.celebration.fl.us. Again, celebrationhall@townhall.celebration.fl.us. Okay.
Okay. Well done.
And then, wait, one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing. Okay. And at this time, there are plans for an open town hall meeting, tentatively set for June 23rd. And
I'm sorry, Joy, the 21st or 23rd?
Third. And this will be advertised in the next couple of weeks, as well as our next formal meeting when we have a date with what Lauren has been very helpful in getting for us. That's all I have.
Any
Comments or
questions?
questions from the board?
Same comment. Thank you.
Yeah. You guys are doing a terrific job. Both advisory groups are really getting on it and working, and we appreciate the time that you all are putting in and the effort that you're putting in. And I've been telling the board all along, trust the process. If we trust the process, we're going to get to the right result. And I firmly believe that in both of these cases. So thank you very much for those reports. All right. Next item is the K-8 contract discussion. Brian, I go to you on this?
Sure. Okay. What we have been talking about with the school, our contract was up at June 30th. We can't give them notice of cancellation. We're working on a new contract. It would relate to the 2 Little League fields and the grass field by Celebration Avenue. Lauren is working on a bid on what we would cost to maintain those. We had one earlier from Yellowstone, and I think we're getting a new one now. We've got 200 Celebration children that play Little League in both the spring and the fall, so it's getting used. Plus, it also gets used for flag football and all the stuff that happens with the sports there. We've drafted a contract. What we requested from them was specific fixes to the tennis courts. I had a meeting last night where Terry Castillo, who's the board member, the principal was there, and Dr. Pace has met before. On the tennis courts, what they're talking about now is turning one of them into a basketball court and the other 2 into children's open play type things where they would re-asphalt them, put a green cover on them, on the asphalt itself, which makes it not get so hot, but it would be basketball. It would be kids open play and it would look nice. They're putting together funding right now for track and everything down there. And they've also got funding approved for a covering for the recess area that we do. So the school had told us they would make commitments to try to make a lot of progress on beautifying the place. That has occurred. We still hear from some residents a double taxation argument. It's a tough, we heard about it from a comment earlier. There's no argument that it's correct. On the other hand, do we want to have Little League fields that work or not becomes the argument in my mind. I think even the board argues within itself there. So that's where this conversation is at right now.
Comments or questions? Cindy, you're on that group. Jim, you're on that group. Anything to add? Okay. David?
So these are conversations. This requires a legal contract.
Which has been drafted. And Tom Slayton has been working with the attorney for the school and it's being reviewed by them right now.
So the school board or their approval people have to approve it. And we have to approve it. And I think some of us have argued over the last months. You know, our decision is based on what's in best interest of our residents. And so, because the prior contract was very, 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 if I may, lopsided.
This is a complete rewrite of the contract.
So, and should nothing happen, since should there be no signed contract by June 30, our services end.
Yeah, that's the reality of the contract.
Yeah, so they have, both groups have to decide. They have a little over 30 days.
But I will say, as of last night, they're making active actions to make a bunch of fixes that we had talked about and stuff like that. So I have no reason to believe they're not planning to proceed.
We're talking about a 2-year contract. Initially, it was 5, and we scaled it back to 2, correct?
That's what we're
You've seen,
that's what we're offering.
The contract you saw is the one that's out there.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay. With that, we're going to skip item number 8 and we're going to go to board comments. Let me start with you, David.
Thank you for a robust meeting.
That's it? Okay.
Robust discussion. Oh, you want more?
No more.
All
right. Thank you. Jim?
I'd just like to thank all the residents that spoke up tonight, especially about the importance of civility.
Okay. Celia?
Okay, a couple of things. First off, thank you for the basketball courts on behalf of every citizen in Celebration. Everybody's happy about that. I I just want to make notice that Nikki was event at Lakeside last week for Embrace Celebration. And Nikki was recognized by them with an award for all her outstanding hard work. Great organization, and it was a great time. And thank you to management, because things are getting done. Thank you.
Cindy.
I was going to say anything, but now I decided that I am going to apologize to the management team on behalf of the Celebration residents for any disrespect that's been shown to you recently with things like spitting and emails that start out, hey, can't say. That is not what's, I mean, you haven't been here that long, but please believe that that is not the true celebration that you're seeing. I don't know what's driving this craziness, and it's not only here, it's in the world, but I just wanted to apologize on behalf of Celebration.
You're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
And the one comment I'll add to that is I have seen emails written that are profanity laced and sent to management. I've heard the stories of the spitting and stuff like that. It is, and the reason we're drilling this home and we'll continue to drill it home, and it's not, some of these conversations are very difficult. There's no right or wrong. It's just not fun. But if we can't be civil, God help us. And, some of it is just ridiculous. So please just tell people to take a deep breath. Thank you very much.
My final comment would be that I know that tonight's conversation around lawn sports and Lot D and pickleball was a tough one. It was detailed. I hope that every board member felt heard and listened to and felt that we gave it an honest discussion. I would say that when we're talking about civility, what we hopefully modeled here tonight was that we can be civil and disagree, that we can have differing opinions and respect each other, that we can walk out of this room, as we will tonight, and still be friends. I have been part of CROA boards where that didn't happen, as many of you have. And I think that it is a real testimony to the people on this board that we are trying to find the right answers, and we are willing to listen to the different ideas and take our votes and then move forward with one voice. And I think at the end of the day, to put $1 in Brian's jar, that makes us good stewards of this community's resources. Every one of us knows the hours that we put in. We know that this is an unpaid job, but it is a very close to full-time job for many of us, if not all of us on this board. And we do it with the best of intentions and with integrity. And so when the comments come to management and to the members of this board that accuse us of a lack of integrity, that's just wrong. And it needs to stop. And it needs to stop immediately, because this community is better than that. And so I join Cindy in saying we apologize for the way that some of our residents have treated you. It's not acceptable. The board won't accept it, and we're going to work to do better. And so with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.
I guess I didn't say. Oh, no. He's not putting it in tomorrow. This is.